Hi, everyone. I know that your first speech is coming up soon and you might be feeling a little nervous, so I thought I would share some tips, some advice, and some strategies to help you prepare and give your best speech. We're going to start by talking about my general advice for speeches. Number one, nerves are normal. I know that I personally feel so nervous when I have to speak in public that sometimes I start shaking and my voice sounds like I'm gonna cry, and it's just normal. Most people get some form of stage fright. Most people don't like giving speeches. Most people feel very vulnerable giving speeches or speaking in public, and that's okay. It is okay to feel uncomfortable. Let it go. Don't be embarrassed about feeling nervous. Everyone feels nervous. Move on. To help with the nerves, there are some things that help me. Number one, I feel better when I feel prepared. So, to start that preparation, start by thinking about what you want your audience to take from your speech. When you know that you are giving good information, it's a lot less nerve wracking. You're just there to tell the people what they need to know, to share your idea, to give advice. When you have that purpose and when you know that you've prepared good information, the speech itself is slightly less scary. The second thing that I find very, very helpful and that I highly recommend is to practice. The first time that you give your speech out loud, the first time that you say your speech should not be presentation time. Say it a bunch of times ahead of time so that you have that practice. You have a little bit of muscle memory. Say your speech out loud before the presentation. If you need to say your speech to yourself in the mirror, do that. Practice in the shower. Set up some stuffed animals or get your dog to sit and give your speech to your stuffed animal or your pet. Give your speech to your mom or your kids or your husband. I like to prepare a speech and then have my son be my audience for practicing. Um, he does actually pay attention and he knows how nervous I get, so he's very kind about it. But he does also sit through classes and presentations all day because he's at school. So he does give me some nice feedback as well and good advice. So make sure you're practicing early. My last kind of general speech advice here is to remember that you are presenting, not reading. Um, Talk to your audience. A good way to give an engaging speech is to think about it kind of like a conversation. You should be talking to your audience. You should not be holding a notebook like this and reading every word on it because that doesn't help with our eye contact, with our gestures, with our body language, with our um I lost my train of thought. But speaking and giving information is only a small part of communicating. There's a lot of body language. Intonation was the word I wanted. There's a lot of body language that comes across that can make you more or less engaging. There's a lot of message in our intonation, in our natural sentence rhythm, in our pauses. That's all important too. And when we read, we often focus so much on reading the words that we forget all about the elements of a good speech. We forget about the communication piece. So it's okay to go off script. It's okay to talk to your audience. That's what you should do. We don't usually memorize conversations before we have them. So that kind of natural speech is it's preferred, it's normal, it's recommended. So, when you are giving a speech, when you feel nervous, make sure you're prepared. That can help a little bit with the nervousness. Make sure you practice ahead of time and make sure you remember to present, not read. Let's move on to what you'll be presenting, right? That organization and the information should be in a specific order. So, first, make sure you start with an introduction. Your introduction is the time to say what your topic is going to be, give any background information that you need to, and make your audience interested. Why do they want to listen to you? Because you're going to tell them something cool. Set that up in the introduction. Sometimes introductions can be very structured. Sometimes they're a story. Sometimes you might start with a quote or a surprising statement or an interesting statistic or data. Any of those are fine. Whatever you're comfortable with and whatever is a good way to introduce your topic. If, for example, you're talking about giving speeches, you might want to start by saying to your audience, we've all given speeches before. Most of us hate it, and I'm here to make it slightly less awful. I told my audience we're going to be talking about giving speeches. I gave a little bit of interest, right? And I have a purpose. I'm going to help my audience give better speeches, sort of. That's how an introduction should work. It can be a lot longer than that. You could tell a story to get people interested. You could set a scene. Imagine you are walking down the street and you see a piece of trash littering the beautiful scenery. This is a big problem. Pollution and littering is a huge problem for our parks. Let's talk about how we can fix that. I don't know. Anyway, you want an introduction, something that sets up your topic in an interesting way and gets your readers invested in what you're going to say. Next, you want to follow a very clear pattern. Say your main idea or your first point about your topic, and then explain it and give an example. If you don't want to give an example, that's fine. Have a very long explanation or a definition or a statistic or whatever. But you want to say your point and then you want to explain, much like I'm doing in this video. I've said that we're going to be talking about organizing your information, and now I'm explaining. Then I'll go back to my next point, and I'll explain that one too. So my outline for this video, I had my short introduction about speeches. Then my first main idea was all about general speech tips. And I explained my general advice for giving speeches. My second main idea is this one. And I think I said, next I'm going to talk about organizing or including information in your speech. And here we are in the explanation and examples part. My third main idea for this video is going to be what is it? Pronunciation tips or delivery advice. And I will transition and clearly state that too before I explain what those are and give you a couple examples. Finally, you want a conclusion. I like to think about this like saying bye before you hang up the phone. My dad does not say goodbye before he hangs up the phone, and sometimes I'm still talking and he just hangs up on me. Don't do that to your audience. You want to wrap things up, give your final thoughts, connect back to your topic, maybe give a summary of some of the things you've talked about. I might say, so here we are. We know that everyone gets nervous. If you prepare, if you practice, if you focus on presenting clearly and organizing well, your speech will go a lot smoother and you'll feel a little bit less stressed. I summarized my main ideas. I connected back to my topic of giving speeches, and I try to give my reader or my audience something to do with my information that I presented. Finally, let's talk about some pronunciation tips. I know from your feedback that pronunciation is something you're all very, very worried about. First, it's not one of the most important things in your speech. It's much more important that you have good information, that it's organized well, and that you focus on presenting and delivering that information clearly. However, if you do want some pronunciation tips, number one, look up pronunciation of key words in an online dictionary and practice. In your speech, you should not be saying any words you've never said before, and you should not be using any words that you don't know how to pronounce. I have a picture here from Longman Dictionary of Contemporary English online, LDOCE online.com. They have definitions for every word, and they also have little speaker icons. If you click those speaker icons, you can hear the word pronounced. I sometimes will listen to the word, say it out loud, play the word again, say it out loud again, and I do that until I sound like the recording, until I'm pronouncing it like that recording. This is a really good way to practice, and if you do have an important word for your topic, like language, I want to make sure I'm going to pronounce that word correctly because I'm probably going to say it more than once. Those are the words that I really recommend practicing. My other advice kind of goes back to that reading one. Don't read any unfamiliar words on your notes. If you're sounding out a word when you're reading it, you're probably not pronouncing it flawlessly, and you're messing up all of that intonation and rhythm and pauses that are a big part of pronunciation. So remember that pronunciation is more than saying each word perfectly. It's all of our sentence rhythm, all of our pauses, all of our intonation, the way our voice goes up and down. That's all part of clear pronunciation. So when you're reading, when you're focusing so much on individual sounds, you're missing the bigger picture with pronunciation. So that's all my speech tips for you. Don't forget to prepare ahead of time. You're going to be nervous. Plan on being nervous and do what you can to make it a little bit better. I feel less nervous when I'm prepared, when I know what to expect. And so I make sure that I prepare a good outline and I practice ahead of time. You want to make sure that your information is clear and that it's organized well and that you're explaining everything. Finally, remember that pronunciation is more than just saying each word perfectly. Pronunciation is a lot of things, including sentence rhythm, tone, intonation, pauses, thought groups. There's a lot of stuff. You can look up in pronunciation of individual words using online dictionaries. Please don't focus so much on those sounds that you forget about all the other parts of communication. If you are absolutely dying inside, just remember you can do this. This is not a huge deal. You're just talking to your classmates who are all going through the same thing that you are. You're going to be okay. Do what you can. You'll be fine. That's all for me, guys. I'll see you online.